immunofluorescence antibody test used for the diagnosis of canine leishmaniasis in the Mediterranean Basin, systematic review and meta-analysis.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. I would like, first of all, to thank Dr. EDDAIKRA for inviting me for the workshop. So the communication today will be about the evaluation of the immunofluorescence antibody test used for the diagnosis of canine leishmaniasis in the Mediterranean Basin. It's based on a systematic review and a meta-analysis. So I don't have a we'll focus on the zoonotic visceral leishmaniasis, which is a chronic and frequently lethal disease. It is primarily observed in children. It is also an opportunistic disease in immunodeficient adults. I give here, for instance, the HIV, but you can also find it on bourgeois diseases or lupus diseases. So it is clinically characterized by irregular bouts of fever, weight loss, enlargement of the spleen and liver is shown on the photo, anemia, and the problem with this disease is if left untreated, the fatality rate can be as high as 100% within 2 years in developing countries. So, Leishmania infantum, the etiological agent of zoonotic visceral leishmaniasis, does its life cycle transmission in 2 hosts. So completes its life cycle transmission in 2 hosts. So the phlebotomy sand fly vector, and which transmits the flagellated promastibute form, infected promastibute form, and also on mammals that contains the amastibate form, which where the amastibate form will replicate, develops and replicates. So domestic dogs are known as the main reservoir of the parasite. However, in dogs, clinical symptoms may vary from a total absence of symptoms to severe clinical syndrome. This is explained by the balance of the humoral immunity, and the cellular immunity. And it's well recognized now that the protected form of the dogs that are asymptomatic is related to the protection mediated by the cellular response, immune response. So the clinical and biological signs of canine leishmaniasis is weight loss, depilation, enlargement of lymph nodes, splenomegaly, anemia, and decrease in albumin globulin ratio, hypercreatininemia, and proteinuria. I added here the biological signs because most of the time we'll say that dogs are asymptomatic, but they could have just proteinuria as the first sign. So many transmission routes, or the principal transmission route is by the bite of blood-feeding vector, which is the sandfly, but other transmission routes were confirmed as the vertical route, the blood transfusion, and the venereal transmission. This schematic presentation here represents the distribution of clinical leishmaniasis in a population, canine population, and we have here the peak of the pyramid, which is a small subset that represents dogs with clinical disease. The second subset represents seropositive dogs but without clinical signs. The third purple subset represents PCR positives but seronegative dogs. And the last fourth subset is the PCR negative and seronegative dogs that we consider as non-infected dogs. So both symptomatic and asymptomatic dogs are infectious to sandfly speakers, which allows to transmit infection to other dogs or humans. So to control the disease in humans, it is important to do early detection of infected animals, which is the best way to reduce the risk of infection and control disease in the humans. So with an expected sensitivity of 96% and specificity of 98%, the World Organization of Animal Health considered immunofluorescence antibody test as the reference test to validate new diagnostic methods or to estimate canine leishmaniasis true prevalence in the Mediterranean Basin. Just to say what is the sensitivity and specificity for people who don't know what does it mean, there are indicators of the diameter of test validity. So the sensitivity is the conditional probability that the test yields a positive result given the individual is truly a case. The specificity is the conditional probability that the test yields a negative result given the individual is truly non-case. And a gold standard test has sensitivity of 100% and specificity of 100%, which is quasi non-existent in veterinary medicine and in the field. So the objectives of this study were to conduct a systematic review on the accuracy of EFAT for estimation of canine leishmaniasis prevalence in the countries of the Mediterranean Basin. It was also to highlight the potential causes of variation in the sensitivity and specificity of EFAT, and finally to estimate the sensitivity and specificity of EFAT in different contexts using meta-analysis based on selected available classical studies. So for our material methods, we did a systematic review on PubMed on all papers published before 31st July 2014. We used the PRISMA guidelines, so the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis to ensure transparency and to ensure really good reporting of the articles. So the first step was the identification of the records using a combination of keywords that were canine leishmaniasis and immunofluorescence antibody test, or EFAT, or EFA, or EFI, and diagnostic accuracy or validation of sensitivity or specificity. So we found the second step was the screening. So we screened by title, abstract, and keywords. We therefore excluded all the literature reviews. We excluded the studies that were carried out in countries other than in the Mediterranean Basin. And also you see here that we excluded reviews in Portuguese and German. I wasn't able to read those articles. So we confirmed eligibility by fully reading the articles, and we found, so at the end we included 31 articles. Afterwards, a meta-analysis was carried out. So meta-analysis is a statistical method that could determine the accuracy of a test using the findings of different and independent studies. So it was based on available studies generated with classical validation methods. So here the classical validation methods means the contingency table method, so 2x2 table method. It was used to estimate the sensitivity of EFAT in symptomatic and asymptomatic dogs from endemic Mediterranean basin, the specificity of EFAT in non-endemic and endemic areas. We were using Meta, which is an R package, and we used the random effects meta-analysis model with an heterogeneity among the different studies considered. So the heterogeneity here is to be sure that we will get variability between the studies. So our results, as I said before, 31 articles were included for the 26-year period available. Validation of EFAT was conducted both north and south of the Mediterranean basin. Dogs were sampled from both endemic and non-endemic regions. The EFAT threshold varied from 120 to 200 with a mode of 180. 3 methods of validation stood out. The classical contingency table analysis, the 2x2 table with 26 articles. The statistical validation with 2 articles, one based on the latent class analysis and the second based on the Basin average. And finally, an experimental validation based on 3 articles. So the results for the classical validation, we observed that it was mostly used against the parasitological examination and or culture or PCR as reference tests. However, we know that microscopic observation and filtering are highly specific but not very specific. So when you have a negative result, you are sure, you have a positive result, you're sure that it's a positive result, but if you have a negative result, you're not sure if it's a false or a true negative result. So this variation, we observed variation in sensitivity and specificity values of EFAT, or also discrepancies with reference test results. We were thinking about some factors that could explain this variation and this discrepancy. So, for example, sample size. We saw that, for example, the EFAT could have 100% sensitivity and 100% specificity on a sample size of 50 individuals, but then will decrease to a 60% specificity because they were working on 1,000 individual samples. Cross reactions. So for cross reactions, one article was speaking about cross reaction with Ehrlichia. However, in Brazil, other cross reactions were observed with Demodex, with Toxoplasma, and also with Ehrlichia. So the 3 parasites exist in the Mediterranean basin. They also report cross reaction with Trypanosoma cruzi, but we don't have it in the area. The reference populations. So reference populations, it's referring to the endemic area, the non-endemic area, because you have dogs that will go on vacation, for example, to the south of Europe, and then they will be expatriate to the north, and there, if you use, they will exteriorize the clinical signs, and they will and then if you use the EFAT will be good. But if you use it in an endemic area, your sensitivity and specificity will decrease. Clinical status. So if you use EFAT on symptomatic dogs, the EFAT will be quasi perfect. But if you use it on non-symptomatic dogs, the sensitivity and specificity will also be lowered. The life cycle stage, here also, if you use the EFAT it is important to know when to use EFAT, because if you use it too early on the early stages of the infection, you could also miss some cases. So, for example, here we speak about the cattle value. So, for example, in the Institut Pasteur, we'll say that it's a case at 180, sorry. But so the individuals with less than 180 will be considered as negative, but they could be like in the beginning of their infection. So for the cutoff value, it is important because if you lower the cutoff value, you will increase the sensitivity, but you will decrease the specificity. For the second validation, it is based on statistical validation. So the latent class analysis showed that EFAT was a gold standard, which means 100% sensitivity and 100% specificity. But we also we observed that it was used on a limited group of stray dogs. And we know also that stray dogs are, they have habits that will make them more easily infected. And the group was about 115 dogs. For the Basin approach, it showed a variation in EFAT sensitivity and specificity related to dogs' function, so lifestyle habits. So it shows, for example, that that EFAT was very highly sensitive and highly specific in stray dogs, but not a gold standard. But it was the indices of validation were lowered when used on dogs, farm dogs. So, for example, the specificity decreased from 86% to 65%. And we can also explain it by the presence of other species that could maybe give cross reactions. And finally, the experimental validation that gave a sensitivity of 63% and 65% for EFAT, and the specificity of 82% and 94%. The experimental conditions are not comparable to natural field infections. That's what we were saying before, earlier. It's really, it will be, many factors can be included here. You can speak about the strains, about the number of parasites, about the route of transmission. So all these factors can be, can explain this variation. We also see in a cohort of naturally infected dogs that there was a seasonal variation in EFAT sensitivity and specificity, which was explained by a seroreversion. So that means that the dog that was positive became negative afterwards. So this is important, which make us conclude here that the seroepidemiological studies must be very carefully planned if they are seasonal, if there is seasonal variation. Our results about the meta-analysis. So the heterogeneity tests were significant, which means that there was a variability between the studies. And our sensitivity of EFAT in symptomatic dogs was 89.86%, and but in asymptomatic dogs it was 31%. You see the difference. Afterwards, for the specificity, it's 98% for non-endemic areas and 96% in endemic areas. So with the asymptomatic dogs, we have a large confidence interval. In conclusion, in the classical validation, so the 2x2 contingency table, EFAT was validated against parasitological exams, known to be very sensitive. A great variation was observed in EFAT sensitivity and specificity values because of some parameters that, like, for instance, here sample size, that we can correct using random sampling, and estimation correct sample size. Cross reactions that we can correct with the Latin class analysis. Reference populations we can also correct with the multi-testing or with a Bayesian approach. Clinical status, so we need to have an accurate case definition before applying our EFAT. Season effect, so we need to repeat testing. And life cycle stage with a good fitness according to the purpose. And finally the cut of value, so we need here the rock curve with the estimation of the area under the curve. The EFAT accuracy declines in endemic areas because of the complexity of the disease. A better definition of the target population is crucial, and multi-testing and more widespread use of statistical methods are important to overcome the lack of the gold standard. And finally, it is important to ensure that the correct statistical model is selected. Thank you for your attention.
I think you touched on a very critical point, which is, of course, asymptomatic infection. Now, this is something which we cannot study in human easily because ethically we cannot sample people that don't show symptoms of the disease. But in dogs, it would be quite an interesting question to approach. Because, of course, first of all, understanding the immunopathology is only one part of the story. That's what we all do. We try to understand immunopathology, but we would like also to understand immunoresistance. How come that in an area you have 5% that are showing symptoms of the people that are maybe seropositive and the rest doesn't show the symptoms? That's the people we should study. Yeah. Because these are resistant and not the people that, I mean, we should study the symptoms as well, but we should compare these things. So my question now is the following. Having a seropositivity or a positive PCR is not sign of an active infection. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any, and maybe this method can fill the gap, maybe that's, is there any method or marker that can be used to monitor an active, ongoing infection, even in the absence of clinical manifestation?
Yeah, I don't think so. To my knowledge, I don't think so, because I always say that when you assess the immunity, humoral immunity, so when you're using tests for antibody tests, it could be like a humoral answer, response, but the dog won't be infected. So the infection could be really ancient. Yeah. However, for the PCR, also, the PCR could be positive, but the PCR cannot say also that it's an antigen, so you can know if the parasite is still alive or not, so if it's possible to be infectious. So that's why the question of these studies at the beginning was really how to be sure that this dog is really a problem for Leishmaniasis, because for example in Algeria the control of the dog is by killing the dogs. So you need to be sure that the dog is really a problem.
And the PCR, I mean, if it's targeting a piece of DNA, I mean, that should be still linked to the presence of the parasite on PCR positive?
I'm not really an expert in PCR, but what I know is that the you're not sure that it could be like a dead also parasite that you're using. It's not really alive, a parasite that is alive. So if it's a dead parasite, it could be not be infectious afterwards. So that's the point.
Just in South America, it was done a lot of studies for the xenodiagnostics, comparing symptomatic and asymptomatic dogs. And the meta-analysis of these studies said that they are equally infectious to symptoms. So also asymptomatic dogs are infectious to symptoms.
And the xenodiagnostic, of course, is maybe the missing link.
Yeah, because you know that the parasite is
super interesting.
Yeah, they are equally infectious. that's why we needed to know what was the role of the asymptomatic dog.
Yeah, just to make the link with the comment of Gerard. So we also in Tunisia have done some work on canine leishmaniasis using EFAT. I think my paper was included in your work.
Surely, I had
It was
papers
published
from
in
Tunisia, yeah.
2015 and
yeah.
others. So we used many population of dogs from many endemic country regions, and we used EFAT in addition to many PCR targets targeting different or several targets. I mean, GP63, A2, kilotoplastic targets, etc. And the conclusion was that we can be using only EFAT as a diagnostic tool because of the cross-reaction problems, because of sensitivity, specificity, as you said, in endemic areas, because of the complexity of the disease. And you cannot either use only PCR, because you can never be sure if you have an acute infection, as you said, because DNA is there, but you cannot be sure that Leishmania is living and having infection. It can be an infected dog who is, controlling the infection and not showing any symptom, but Leishmania is there, and you have a positive PCR.
Yeah.
It is very controversial and very complex. What we recommend in endemic areas is not to be limited in one tool. You have to do serological test. Of course, if you can see the parasite and do culturing, etc., it would be better. But you can also go to PCRs and or PCRs.
Yeah, but the problem, that's why I was starting with the recommendation of the OIE that was saying that they recommend to use EFAT because it is highly sensitive, highly specific, because 98-96% is highly sensitive and specific, but at the same time, it is also not very expensive to use it. You can use it in regional laboratories, you can use it in the field, which is not the case of PCR. So that's why, and most of the time we want to know what is the prevalence of the reservoir, of Leishmaniasis in the reservoir. So that's why, we need to use it on canine leishmaniasis, but at the same time, we don't pay attention to the stature of the dog when we are using the EFAT. This is the purpose of this study, is to say, be careful. When you're using the EFAT, you have to take into account the status of the animal, the area, all the criteria I was given.
What is the relationship between the positivity and age of the dog? Because one can expect that if after long-term infection they are losing signs of infection and detection rate will decrease, you can find something like a curve decreasing this age.
I worked on for this study. I did a study before on different groups of dogs. So, for example, stray dogs, dogs from police dogs, farm dogs, and also pet dogs. So to see the difference. But if you take the stray dogs, their habits, their lifestyle habits will make them more easily infected, and also the incubation duration will be lower, and also because they have weight loss. Thank you. So weight loss. So all these factors will make them do the disease easier than, for example, a pet dog. So there are discrepancies between the studies, because there are some studies that would say that you will find them really in the early ages of the life, and for others it's really immune response will be less strong, so it will make the infection be clinically observed.
Imagine that all are infected
Yes.
during the first half of their life. Then one can expect that all the animals
Yeah.
may be false negative. So I can imagine saturation of the population and in fact quite a different pattern with all infected, maybe
That's
at
why
least the dogs.
the area is important. If you're in an endemic area, those dogs are all the time bitten by the phlebotomes, which some studies are also saying that there is a resistance coming from this biting to the infection, to the disease. So they will, like, I don't know exactly what is the explanation, but I know that if they are living in an endemic area, they are in contact with the phlebotomine, they will make them more resistant to the parasite. But if you bring a dog that is living, for example, in London, bring it to the south of Europe, it will more easily do the disease if he is in contact with, for the first time, with this parasite. I don't know if I get your question.
I understand it, but the problem is that we should search for those individuals which were able to cure and to recover from infection, and in search for them, this waste structure will be.
Yeah, I think that it's not my area of expertise, but I know that there are people that are working on to explain why some dogs develops more easily a cellular response that is that makes protection for them, and other will develop a humoral response, and then they will be diseased. I don't know if I give you an answer.
D'autres questions pour le docteur Adel?
Maintenant, avec la publication du docteur Blida qui vient de Titre, qui a été bloqué dans des embouteillages, mais